Hello and welcome back to Seconds Out. My name is Ayman Khan. We are here in London with the one and only Cutsman to the Greats and pivotal member of Ramsay's boys, Russ Anber. Russ, good to see you in person. How are you doing?
Thanks, Ayman. I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad at all. Just getting the equipment ready to speak to you, Russ, and it's good to be in your company once again. Let's kick off with, you've been busy the last few weeks, most notably in the corner of Liam Beefy Smith, who got a resounding victory, an unexpectedly resounding victory, it's fair to say, against Chris Eubank Jr. Can you walk me through the fight and Liam in the aftermath of the fight after he got that victory in such impressive fashion?
Well, I think he kind of put a stamp on what he had been saying all week and leading up to the fight, which was kind of good because this is something he believed all along. And leading up to the fight, when I was talking to other people and they asked me, "Hey, how's Beefy doing?" I got this sense of like not just a confidence, but an assuredness that he knew exactly what he's doing and what he wanted to do. And he executed. I was happy and fortunate enough to have seen the sparring. I got 2 days of sparring in while I was there for the week before the fight, or 2 weeks before the fight, actually. So I got to see him work, and I got to see him work with Joe McNally on the things that they wanted to do in the fight. And, you know, it was incredible how the plan was executed to perfection. I'm not sure, even Joe, when I spoke to him, you know, we were expecting that we were going to stop Eubanks, but I don't think anybody in their wildest dreams would have thought that we were going to do it that early. And I remember, you know, at the end of the second round or the start of the third, when we came back down the steps, I said to Joe, I said, we're off to a really great start. And we were. And Beefy just carried it out, and he proved to be the consummate professional. And he had a confidence, he believed in what he could do, and he executed it to perfection.
Speaking to you in the build-up, albeit via Zoom, you were very much looking forward to that fight and meeting up with your good friend Roy Jones and potentially getting Roy Jones Jr. and potentially getting the win over Roy. Did you manage to speak to Roy after the fight?
We only spoke in the ring, and you know, obviously he was disappointed. I told him that he made the right call. The TV angle was kind of bad. You don't see it well, but from where we were in the corner, the referee reacted. Now, maybe he can say he was going to stop the fight anyways, but he reacted to Roy coming up the steps with the towel in his hand. That's when he waved it off. So from our perspective, I saw Roy coming up the steps before I saw the referee calling off the fight. So I told Roy, you know, I thought he made a good call, and he said, yeah, he says his legs were gone. And, you know, I told him I thought it was good. I said maybe the referee was going to give him a chance, but I thought that Roy made the right call in stopping it.
A lot has been made, as it will do, in the aftermath of the fight, of the fighter and the preparations, and the Roy Jones Jr. link-up with Chris Eubank Jr. has been under the microscope from boxing fans in the aftermath of the fight. Do you think that link-up works with Chris Eubank Jr., or do you think maybe it didn't work on the night?
Look, I mean, that's something that I'd have to answer if I was in the gym and seeing how Chris responds to Roy. But I mean, I've seen Roy work with fighters, and including fighters that we've worked with, especially with Jean Pascal, and it's been very positive. You know, Roy brings a confidence and an influence to the camp like no other. You know, you have to be a special kind of an athlete to deal with it, if you will. But I can't see how that's a negative. And I thought it was pretty gratuitous of people to take shots at Roy and at Eubanks after that fight. Look, you get caught with a shot. It happened. You know, in every fight that goes on in boxing, there's one guy that loses. Does that make the guy that loses, his trainer, not good anymore? You know, the guy that loses? I thought that was like a little gratuitous that you take that shot, because everybody has suffered defeat, and it's always easy to cast the stone and say, oh, it's the trainer's fault. And no, it's not. You know, like you could have been doing everything great and then got caught with a shot. So I thought it was a little bit cheap to take a shot at Roy in this case, in light of the loss.
That's a fair point. Final one on this. The rematch, do you think it's likely? Do you think Chris will exercise the rematch clause and fight Liam Smith again, potentially at Anfield?
I think he will exercise it. I think, I mean, unless he talks to his promoter and there's a question of money in the negotiation, and then he might say, well, you know, that's not enough money, or I'm not going to do it for that amount, I want more, and that could be something that'll break down. But I think initially he will try to exercise his right. And I mean, it's in the contract. It's something you have to live up to. No problem. Anfield would be great. The thing that I'm, from a boxing perspective, I'm looking at, if I'm the promoter and I'm the television people, say, how do you sell that? How do you turn around and get the people to believe that, wow, this is a shot at the rematch, you know? And it was a relatively, I don't want to say one-sided fight, but it was a pretty dominating performance by Liam, and there's nothing been done that could lead you to believe that, you know, Eubank's going to improve on that performance. But if he has the right to do so, then so be it. Let him do so.
Let's turn our attention to what brings you here to London this weekend. Artur Beterbiev defends his unified light heavyweight titles against challenger Anthony Yarde. You got to see Anthony Yarde in the flesh today, up in person. What do you make of Anthony? His persona, his physique, you saw him from a distance, but what do you make of Anthony Yarde as a challenger?
I can't speak to his persona. I didn't even get to hear. I mean, I saw him being interviewed, but it was like watching it without the volume on TV, you know, like I saw his lips moving, but couldn't hear anything that was said. So I can't really say to his persona. He seemed very respectful leading up, you know, at the workouts. I don't know what he said in the interview, so I can't speak on that. You know, we knew he was an impressive physical specimen. He proved that today. We'll see. You know, they'll have the press conference tomorrow. They'll have the face-offs. They'll do all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, again, you know, like I look at these things. I see what the guys say. I try to get a feel. But, you know, let's face it, that in every fight, in every press conference, and every fight card around the world, half the people are wrong in what they say. They end up being wrong. So, you know, the fight has to play out in the ring, and I'm looking forward to what Arthur's going to show on foreign soil, and show what he can do and why he's, you know, the light heavyweight champion of the world.
You're of course in the team with Beterbiev, but looking at this objectively and looking at what Anthony Yarde did in the ring today, you can't take too much from an open workout, but he showed some defense of the jab, which has been a criticism of his in the past, as well as some wrestling in the clinches as well, which you may see as two things key to, if you're going to get the victory over Artur Beterbiev, you have to have mastered to get the victory over them. Do you think those are, as I'm saying here, maybe two key assets to beat Beterbiev if you're an Anthony Yarde in their camp?
I didn't see what he did, so I don't know. You'll have to explain to me what he did. I don't know. I'm sure they have a strategy and something they've seen and watched fights of and said, okay, we can do this, we can do that. Okay, that's they're supposed to have that. You know, I expect them to have that. Look for it, and you know, sometimes you know you're fighting guys. You know you're overmatched, and you know but despite that, you want to win, so you will grasp onto whatever thing you can, you know, to try to get yourself to win and find any loophole, anything that might give you a better chance for victory, and that's what we expect them to do. They didn't come into this saying we're not going to watch anything that Beterbiev did. Of course, they're going to prepare. They have to prepare. They're getting a shot at the light heavyweight championship of the world, so you know they have to prepare. So whatever he's working on, if he believes that that's the thing to get him, that's what he's going to have to do, whatever it is.
One of my favorite fighters in the last 10 years is Gennady Golovkin. And watching him over the last few years recently, people will say that he's showed signs of slowing down, showed signs of regressing. I never believed that, but then when you watch the recent fights, you see that. But Artur Beterbiev just shows no real signs of slowing down at all. How long do you think Artur can go at the top level?
If there's somebody who can go long, it's Artur. I believe. You know, he takes such good care of himself. He's in shape all the time. He's a guy that when you tell him to take time off, that just means not going to the gym 3 times a day. It's only going to the gym once a day or twice a day. You know, like he's really dedicated. He's a man of faith. He has his convictions. He eats well all the time. It's not like he just eats well for the 8 weeks that he's in camp. He's a really dedicated guy. So I think he's somebody who could go on for a long time and do this. And I think he can go for as long as he wants to go. You know, I think he can do it. He has the belief to do it. He has the strength. He has low mileage when you think about it as a pro. You know, use Gennady as an example. Gennady's been in a few wars, right? You know, that takes its toll on you. Artur hasn't had that yet, so that's good. That's got low mileage on the clock for him. So I think that's good.
Now, in terms of your role, you're the cutsman in this camp, but where does your role specifically start in the fight week? Is it the fight night? Does it come in? Do you assess Artur's skin potentially in the week? How does your role start in the fight week?
Oh, well, it starts more than in the fight week. It starts before that because I'm in constant communication with Marc. He tells me who we're fighting. We'll speak on the phone about things that, what do I think about certain things, how we should fight, what the plan is. So it starts way before that. And it's not just a question of cut man. I'm there as a cut man. I'll be ready, God forbid, if something happens. And I hope he doesn't need me for that. But I hope my main input will be to Marc and in guiding Artur to victory.
And how do you feel he does get that victory? Because Anthony Yarde is someone, over these shows we've seen him, he's fearless, which you think is something a quality you need to defeat Artur Beterbiev. He's someone who's determined as well. He's got that puncher's chance, or maybe more than a puncher's chance. A hell of a punch is what James Cook was telling me in the build-up to this week. But can Artur Beterbiev box? Will he knock him out? It's in his favour, but what does he do in the ring on Saturday night?
I think he fights like Artur Beterbiev. I think he'll do what he has to do. I think he'll call on the experience he's had on the world stage in both amateurs and the pros. I think he'll handle whatever lights and cameras are thrown at him. I think he'll deal with whatever adversity Anthony Yarde has to present to him. And the thing about Artur, that the one thing that no other fighter can make claim to, or at least not many can make claim to, is Artur taking this guy seriously. Artur takes every fight seriously. You know, he doesn't underestimate anybody, and he will deal with it the same way he's dealt with all the other opponents and adversity that he's faced in his boxing career.
Now, Artur's known as a road warrior who'll go anywhere he'll go on the road essentially to fight whoever it is. Is potentially coming a week beforehand, maybe giving yourself a little bit of a disadvantage?
Well, it's a little more than a week. He got here on Friday, you know, which is a little bit more than a week before the fight. So I think it's fine. I think they traveled when they would. Listen, everybody, you know, does things differently. Arthur's traveled often. He knows what he wants to do. When, you know, go back 25 years when I had Otis Grant fighting Ryan Rhodes here, we set up our training camp in England. So we were here for 8 weeks before the fight, you know, just because we wanted to get climatized and feel at home, feel like we were comfortable in the UK, and we did, and you know, it was a great night for us. That, you know, and that was my first world title that we won. So, you know, everybody's different. If Artur and Marc decided that that's when they're going to come, that's because they felt that was the time that was needed. So I don't think that's going to be a problem for them.
Now, we've mentioned about Beterbiev and Bivol in the future, but there's, to bridge our earlier conversation about Liam Smith, Callum Smith is someone who will be an interested observer in this fight at the weekend. Is that a fight, the winner of this one, if it is Beterbiev, he'll have to come through Yarde's challenge at the weekend, but is that one maybe you don't relish as well?
Not at all. Not at all. I don't relish that one at all, and I hope that fight never happens, but that's just speaking for me personally. So, you know, it's two guys that I've been involved with since early in their careers. Beterbiev from fight one, and Callum Smith very early in his career from the first time he fought in the United States. You know, I was with him. So, and I've been with him for all great victories and along the way. And no, I hope those two never fight. You know, it's a shame. That's the one thing about boxing that I hate is, you know, having to deal with this and having to be in the opposite corner, or putting myself in a position where I won't work a fight because I have two guys that I care for deeply that I can't be in one over the other. So, yeah, I know. I hope they both have a chance. You know, Callum wants a shot at the light heavyweight title, and there's so many of them. I hope he gets that opportunity, and you know, I hope he gets to make a lot of money, and I hope I'm there for those wins, and I hope Artur can do what he does. But, and from a personal, a selfish point of view, I hope they don't fight.
I remember speaking to you the first time I spoke to you, and you gave essentially the take that every boxing fan has and the frustration of seeing certain fights not happen. Taking yourself out of the equation, do you, for boxing fans, the greater good of boxing, to finally potentially see Beterbiev and Bivol in the ring, hopefully this year, we've got to see it, right?
That's, to me, that's probably what is the biggest malaise right now in boxing. And I don't know that people care enough. Boxing fans care enough. You care enough, but it's like you still come out even when they don't fight, even if they don't fight each other, and you're still covering it. And it's so the promoters sit back and say, we don't have to do that, and they stay on their own path, and they have their. It's as if each one has their own private industry of boxing, and they just focus on their people. They spend time criticizing everybody else. They do everything in their power to avoid somebody fighting, two guys fighting together that should be fighting each other. So yes, I mean, it's a no-brainer. You can't have two guys undefeated, one who just comes off a win against Canelo as champion of the world, fighting the other light heavyweight champion of the world. I mean, it's insane that doesn't happen, the lightweight division, again, more insanity, guys. I remember when Loma was champion, and they were saying how, Tank Davis, he's just learning, he's a kid, we're going to keep him away from. He's 28 years old. Like, you're already champion of the world. You're not supposed to be still in the grooming stages when you've won a championship of the world. So I just think that everybody just has their own agenda and they don't care. And the fighters are at the point now with their popularity on just cashing a check, that it's not about who they fight. We talk about legacy, and then they scoff it off. They want to be great, but they scoff off the legacy, and they're more interested in their cash. I was talking about that with Scully today, of how, Willie Pep lost his title and then fought 3 times before the year was out, and the guys would never do that today. It's crazy. So the times have changed drastically, and now it's not just about boxing. It's about, how much money you can make and how we can maneuver you into making the most money, but not always for the fighter, for the, the promoters as well, or whatever TV network they happen to be signed to. So of course it's frustrating.
You mentioned Dimitri Bivol. We saw him beat Canelo. There's the potential that Canelo and Bivol might rematch, but at 168. Do you think we'll see that this year?
I hope we never see that. I think that's another fraud move to suck Bivol's weight down. Bivol's never made 168. He has no business fighting at 168. That's taking off far too much weight off of a big man. That's putting a big man's health in danger, despite whatever science is going to tell you, we can get his weight down, we'll do tests, and I can do this, and we can do that. No, I don't have to be a doctor to know that. I don't have to be a specialist in nutrition to know that. The guy's a 175-pounder who walks around at well over 175 pounds and comes down to make 175. Now you want to take another 7 pounds off and make 168. No, he's the light heavyweight champion of the world. But you see, again, they say that it shouldn't even be a question, because you're the light heavyweight champion of the world. What do you mean I'm going to fight at 175? That's insane. I hope that never happens. I hope they never gives him the rematch. I hope he leaves that mark on Canelo's record for the rest of his life and not do it. But they won't, because they want to cash in on that Canelo money, and they're ready to sacrifice cutting off a limb just to cash that check. And I think that's disgusting.
Good insight there, Russ. Maybe a fight that you more likely want to see, which a lot of boxing fans do want to see, is that being Haney versus Lomachenko, where it looks like we're going to be getting that fight, a great fighting prospect there, Russ. I
hope so, and credit to Haney for doing that, because Loma's had to wait around a long time to get back his titles, and that's going to be a great fight. And it's not an easy fight either, because Devin has proven to be a hell of a fighter, and he's got that size, man. He's big. Like the fighters today are big. The pre-fight weigh-ins, the day before weigh-ins, I should say, are making guys bigger. And it's, generally it balances out that, well, everybody just fights a bigger size, despite being in a lower weight. But in the case of Lomachenko, he's the guy that's moved up to his 3rd weight category. He's the smaller guy. He's moved up for challenges, not because of body size. It's not because he's you know, he's gained weight, he's moved up for challenges. It's like he's spotting guys' weight as an advantage to try to keep it competitive. That otherwise he could have stayed at 130 pounds. Every fight he would have had, he would have been a 15-1 favorite. You know what I mean? Like it would have been, and there'd be no interest because they wouldn't have seen anybody, could have seen an opponent beating him at 130 pounds. So he moves up to 135. Haney's big, walks around at 160, maybe more, comes down to 135. By the time fight comes around, he's 154 solid. He's a big guy. So that's always, you know, Loma has to give that up all the time to people. But I'm excited that they're doing it, and I'm looking forward to that. Just like I'm going to be looking forward to Usyk and Fury.
Yeah, Usyk and Fury. Hopefully we do get the fight signed, sealed and delivered. It seems like there's a couple of snags in the fight, but hopefully we do get it Saudi Arabia, maybe Wembley.
It shouldn't be Wembley. It shouldn't be Wembley. Okay. It shouldn't be the UK. It should be.
You're gonna annoy the UK fans here, Russ.
No, but I'm saying it shouldn't be, because if you want to make the fight, it should be in neutral territory. You know, you're two heavyweight champions of the world. It should be in neutral territory. So you know, if you want to make the fight, you can't just put that as a possibility to say, yeah, you either come here or there's no fight. Now you don't want to make the fight. You know, it should be in you should want to have to make that fight fair for both guys and have it in neutral territory and let the better man win.
The other thing I wanted to touch on with you, Russ, is just more about the team. With Marc Ramsay, I think the hardcore boxing fans know quite a bit about Marc, but maybe people in the UK, unless you're a proper hardcore, you maybe don't know too much. Can you tell me about how Marc has managed to nurture so many world champions, someone like Artur Beterbiev, to get him to the top? What's so good about Marc as a coach?
Look, Marc's been around a lot of years, and he's done his work. He's paid his price in the world of boxing from amateurs, and that's something that the pros don't do. He's paid his price, and it's something that we've all done, you know, back home to get to where we are today. Myself, him, you had to nurture and go through the amateurs, raise the guys up through the amateurs, through the novices, the provincials, the nationals, national team, international competition, Olympic Games. Then you turn your guys pro. You know, we've done that, and he's done that. He's paid the price along the way, and he's had a great eye for talent. He's been able to spot guys under the radar that everybody else seems to. You got to ask yourself the question, and you have to ask every other promoter who should be kicking themselves in the head of, how did Beterbiev get under the radar of every major promoter that we were able to get him to Montreal? That's a question that should be asked, and that's what Marc was successful in doing. And he's been able to surround himself with good people, and I'm glad I feel part of that. And he doesn't have an ego about him. He has a strong will and character that he doesn't believe anybody's trying to hurt him. He brings in good people to work with his guys, and the fighters appreciate it, and he gets the result. And you know, he's able to manage them properly, move them into the right fights, match them properly, get them the experience, get them the sparring, and I think his work speaks for himself. It's a little bit of a shame, not only in the UK, but even in America, that he goes unnoticed, you know, because he's not American or British, you know, and has a fancy name, you know, where they would hold him in high esteem because he's a young guy and just in it now. And I think they miss out on that, and it's good that you recognize that.
Yeah, I thought someone like an Anthony Joshua during his training search, Marc Ramsay was someone who maybe who'd knock on the door of being someone who could potentially help nurture and add some strings to Joshua's game.
Again, like I said, we in Canada, let's face it, we do go somewhat unnoticed, you know, as to what we do and how good we are and the guys that we produce. It does go somewhat unnoticed, and you know, I don't think they even gave it a second thought about looking at that. And you know, I think that Marc deserves a better look at what he's done and the team he's built around him.
Russ, that begs the question for me. You've been in the game a long time, as has Marc. Especially in the UK, there's a bit of a flux state right now in terms of the standard of coaching and where the standard lies right now, with new coaches rising through the ranks. One criticism that was levied at TUNDE is about his standard of coaching when it came to Anthony Yarde. A lot of people wanted Yarde to maybe move somewhere else, but Yarde stayed loyal to TUNDE. But I just wonder what you think in a general sense about the standard of coaching in boxing. Is it as high as it has been in the past?
You know, the game is not as high as it's been in the past. I don't think, and maybe that's a result of coaching as well, but I don't think the same qualities are on. Yeah, when you have a great fighter, he's a great fighter, but there used to be 10 of them. Now there's one. So I think that the number of people taking part in sport. John Scully pointed out something to me that was really. I wish I would have known this, because it really puts into perspective where the game of boxing is right now. If you went back to, say, the 1950s, there were more professional fighters active in the city of New York, than there are in all of the United States of America right now. So that puts into perspective just how many fighters were out there and just how difficult it was to get to the top and be among the best that there is, how hard it was that you had to fight to get to where you wanted to go. And now we don't have that. Is that reflective of coaching? I'm sure part of it is. I think we've replaced a lot of it with, we've tried to compensate with other things, strength and conditioning and nutritionists. We've tried to compensate with that instead of remembering about that the skill set is more important than the how to fight is more important than anything else. So yeah, I think the good coaches that succeed, and we can look at them. I mean, here in the UK, whether it's Joe McNally with Liam or Joe Gallagher has had a lot of success with fighters. These are guys that have done their homework about the skill set in boxing and how to fight and what to do and how to. Now, when you incorporate the strength and conditioning coaches and the nutritionists in with that, then you've got yourself a winning recipe. But anybody who loses sight of the importance of having a great boxing trainer and someone who's going to teach you the fundamentals and work on them and develop good battle plans and work on things and work on punches and be really detailed about how they want you to fight, I think that's probably a little bit of a rarity these days. But to get back to Yarde, I credit him for sticking by Tunde, because I don't know Tunde personally. I've never met him, so I can't speak of him. I don't know of his work. I don't know. All I know is that he got Yarde to where he is today. They must be doing something right. He must be doing something right to get him there. And you can't turn around and have all this work and have this guy as a #1 contender and got him to the position of fighting Kovalev or whatever and have him at that point and then blast him off, like dismiss him, like he wasn't a part of that development of Anthony Yarde. So I credit Yarde for sticking by the guy.
Just to give you the opposite point of view, would it not be say, as a fighter, you have one career, you maybe have the right to train a shot potentially if you feel the need to move?
Obviously, he didn't feel that, did he? Because he stayed. So everyone else wanted him to move for whatever reason. I don't know why. I don't know what the controversy is. I shouldn't really, I can't speak on that, like I don't know the guy. I don't know the pros, the cons. I don't know anything about what he's done. But obviously Yarde does. And despite being heavily pressured, because I know that there's a lot of pressure on him to move and a lot of naysayers surrounding Tunde, and he stuck with him. So there must be a reason why he did that. And I think for me, as somebody looking from the outside, saying, well, he's here, he must have done something right. You can criticize all you want, and you can say, nah, this guy's not good. Well, you got him here. Nobody else did. You weren't there before. You weren't there with the development. All the people criticizing weren't there. But Tunde was. So I have nothing, I can't say anything about the guy. He's been there, and Yarde stuck with him.
You brought it beautifully to my last question. Let's get back to the fight. Is this the type of fight that can only be fireworks from the off? It seems like we've got the two elements of that will just meld perfectly into a great fight where it doesn't need judges.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's pretty obvious. And Beterbiev, how can Beterbiev be in a bad fight? Can't. Come on.
Russ, it's a pleasure speaking to you. Great to see you again in person. Thank you so much for speaking to Seconds Out. Wishing you and the team all the best for Saturday night. I can't wait for the fight.
Thanks, brother. Me too. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Cheers.